Why wait to earn the degree you deserve? You have the experience, you have the knowledge. Now's the time to get the credit for the work you've done and earn the recognition you deserve by starting your comeback at Purdue Global. It's time to earn a degree you'll be proud of, a degree that employers will respect. It's never too late. Never too late to come back stronger and move forward in your career. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu. Purdue's online university for working adults.
This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. It's a special thing to be a member of Navy Federal because they are a member-owned, not-for-profit credit union that invests in its members with amazing rates and low fees. That's why members could earn and save more every year. Plus, they serve all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. So if you're interested in becoming a member, learn more at NavyFederal.org. At Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
Episode 327, Saving Money on Rent.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about rent. I know we talk a lot about home buying. So many of you are saving to buy a house or own a home, but we wanted to do a specific episode on renting because renting has definitely seen a resurgence in the last 3 to 4 years, that it is becoming the preference for more and more people. And we think that's great. We are for that. So let's talk about how to save money on it. We're going to do it.
Especially in a time when rent everywhere seems to be increasing, as are mortgages for various reasons. So we want to cut expenses on the big things like housing wherever possible. And I'm excited about this one.
Yes. But first, this episode is brought to you by a very special way to save money on rent, slow twerking. Yesterday, Jill sent me a video of an influencer teaching his audience how to save money on rent, and his tactic was slow twerking. He did this as he asked his landlord not to raise his rent. And as a landlord myself, I was shocked, I was dismayed, and I instantly wanted to keep him at the same rate he was paying. I don't know what his rent was, but I knew this man deserved fair rent. So if you're looking to keep your rent the same or lower, try slow twerking, fully clothed. And if you're not the twerking type, subscribe to the friend letter. We send out freebies, saving tips, life hacks every week to help you save money so that you don't have to record yourself slow twerking. frugalfriendspodcast.com/friend letter. You can also do both. Try everything. Get creative.
PSA, that's not actually a part of our episode where we're telling you to send slow twerking videos to your landlord, but it is hilarious.
A thing that is
Please
in
don't
the
raise
ether.
my rent.
That's what he says in the video.
Please don't raise my rent.
And I was impressed.
I mean, saying please, we do
Right.
recommend that.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you rent or not, if you want to queue up a few other home-related episodes to play after this one, episode 265, How to Save Money on Monthly Bills, a great one. We have tips not just for homeowners, but for renters as well. And then episode 246, Frugal Home Cleaning Tips, because when we are cleaning and maintaining our appliances, even if they're not ours, then you can definitely prolong their life, prolong the amount of time you will have to go with a deadbeat landlord not fixing something, as I have heard horror stories from many friends. So even if it's not your stuff, it does behoove you to keep it clean and keep it working, just to save time. So on this episode, we're going to talk about some practical ways to save money on rent, and we're going to wrap up with a whole talk on how to negotiate rent. So this first one is from incharge.org. It is 10 ways to save money on monthly rent payments. And we're not going to go through all of them. The first one is obviously get a roommate. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to just talk about the ones that we found most interesting, applicable. Obviously, if you want a roommate, get a roommate, but
Yeah.
it's not a requirement.
So, in talking about rent affordability, I appreciate some of the empathy and commiseration offered at the beginning of the article. And rent is going up steadily just across the country. And they reference how since 2010, it's steadily risen, where on average, Americans are spending 25% of their income on rent. It's now at 30% of their income. For many people, it might even be higher than that, depending on where you're living. So definitely a timely conversation. And reality is landlords do still need to pay their mortgage in most instances, and insurances and taxes are also going up steadily. So that in part explains why rent is so high. But I think also landlords are trying to make a profit. So the margin of profit is really where there can be room to be able to save. But we'll start off here with number 4 on this list. As far as a way to be able to save money on your rent is to sign an extended lease. So what landlords want always is stability. It costs landlords between $1,500 to $5,000 to turn over to a new tenant. So it behooves landlords to keep tenants, and especially good tenants. So if you know that you plan to stay in a particular area, you are happy with the location, maybe even the apartment or condo or home that you're renting, if you were to rent for 1.5 to 2 years, the ball is definitely in your court to be able to get a lower rent than if you were to sign, say, a 6-month to 1-year lease. There's definitely more room to be able to talk that rent rate lower. But of course, then you have to be willing to stay in that area for that amount of time. So that's definitely a look at your situation to decide. But I've heard this work for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can attest to this. I think I would definitely be more interested in negotiating with someone who has said that they want to stay for longer than a year, because it is turning over after a year every year is kind of annoying. So if I know that I have somebody that wants to stay 2+ years, then I would definitely be willing to negotiate something with them, at least to where it offsets the cost of that I would put in doing tours of the house and posting at places and all of the time that I would save from that, for sure. The next one is to give up your parking space. So this one won't work for everyone, but if you don't have a car, obviously you don't need a parking space, or if you can get creative in where you park, if you may not need a car every day because you work at home and you have an e-bike or a regular bicycle, then maybe trying to put your car somewhere that's more affordable. So just getting creative if you can give up the parking space. Maybe the spot at your complex is $300 a month, but you can find somewhere to park it for $150 a month. And you may only need it a once or twice a week. Who knows? Depending on where you live. But you can often give up your parking spot in exchange for discounted rent. Another option might be to rent out the space. There are websites that allow you to rent parking spaces. So if you can rent out your space for, $300 for a few days, like if you're near an event space or something, then that can pay for your parking spot every month, and you just move your car to a friend's house or something. So get creative on if you truly need your car in front of your apartment or house all the time.
The next one is to look for apartments in the winter. So this one's particularly for those who are apartment hunting at the moment. But they are saying that landlords typically have a tough time finding renters in the winter, mostly because in most parts of the country, it's cold out. People aren't wanting to leave their homes. People aren't wanting to move when it's snowy and icy. And oftentimes rent will increase in the summer. That's That's when a lot of, maybe if you live close to a college students are going to be flooding the market, or families with children are looking to move in that time frame to be in the school district that they want to be in for the upcoming school year. So that makes winter an advantageous time to be looking for an apartment or a house or a condo, and then also having it in your favor to potentially negotiate, which we'll talk some tips on that in the next article. But it's the time frame when you could potentially lock in the lowest rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is for sure more competitive to rent over the summer. It's not as big of a difference in Florida. The rental market is busy here year round. It actually gets just as hard in the winter. But if you are in a place where it snows and it's hard to get around, this is definitely one. And you probably have better negotiating power in the winter as well. So not only less competition, but more power to negotiate. Next, and I think this is probably the most important of all, is to go with private rentals. So a private rental is a property owned by an individual or family as opposed to a corporation, as is the case with most large apartment complexes. Not all, but most. And so private rentals can be houses, but they can also be apartments, especially anything for units and under is going to probably be a private rental. Anything 5 or higher is usually a little harder. But when you go with a private landlord, you can negotiate much more easily than with a corporation. If you're looking at a really big apartment complex, your options are extremely limited, and most of the things we're going to talk about today will not apply to you. The corporations just do not care. They make enough money where apartments can sit vacant for very long periods of time, and they do not lose money because they have so many other rentals that are filled. So definitely, if you can find a rental that is maybe a little higher, but is owned by a private individual or family, it can still be an LLC if you look it up. A lot of individuals will have LLCs for their rentals, but you can more likely negotiate and get stuff off of that one than you ever would be with a hedge fund or corporation that owns a crap ton of rentals.
This next one might seem a little extreme, but we like thinking outside the box. Number 8 is consider a new location. So this could be one of the most cost-effective ways to save money, especially if you're living in a big city with a high cost of living. Of course, the standout stunners are New York City, Los Angeles, San Diego. It's expensive there, where one-bedroom apartments are going for $3,600, sometimes more. And so they're referencing if you want a more urban setting, but you can't afford those prices, to consider emerging cities. They mention Oklahoma City or El Paso, Texas. Can't say you're going to catch me move into either one of those places. But I think I could also throw in here, even just considering a slightly different area outside of the city or area that you currently live in, maybe compromising some version of ease and location to the places that you want to be, extending your commute by 10, 15 minutes to various well-trafficked spots could also save you a lot of money. I mean, I just know in St. Pete, there's different areas that you could live, might not be as close to the things that you want to be, but you could save $100 to $200 a month just by choosing a different area. So yeah, you can move entirely, and that's a massive life decision that could have some really beneficial financial impact for you. But if that's not the massive leap you're looking to do, it's still worthwhile to think, well, would I be willing to compromise this one thing to be able to save X amount of money year over year? Because again, housing is one of our biggest expenses. So wherever we can cut that makes more room for all the other things we really value.
Yeah. And it's not going to be for everyone. I think the younger you are, the more you want to be in the big city, and that's fine. You should definitely do that and take in that's when you're going to want to get a roommate. If this is something that you're not going to budge on, then you've got to go with the old tried and true methods of living together in community. But you've probably come to that conclusion already. The next is, and really Jill should be saying this one, but it's offer to work for the landlord, because Jill has personal experience with this one. But I know that we let our handyman stay in our rental while he did work on our house. And so we got a really great deal on that work because of that exchange. So this one definitely works, but I know Jill has an actual story on this.
I do. I'm going to talk about that in our vulnerability round.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
But you did like some renovations, but it could also just be stuff like maintenance. So if you tell your landlord, hey, I'm handy, and even if you're not like really super handy, if you've checked YouTube and you know how to follow YouTube instructions to replace things, and you say you will not have to come and fix my toilet or my sink in the middle of the night. You will only be called if it is something really serious. That's valuable to an individual landlord or somebody that pays for property management. They save money by not having to call somebody out or time not having to go out there themselves. So you can kind of leverage that if you are handy to say, hey, why don't you knock X amount off because this is what you're getting. I'm handy.
I got hands. I can use them.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
We know New Year's resolutions often don't stick. In fact, on average, they last around 30 days. So if saving money is on your 2024 resolution list, here's a foolproof way to stick to yours.
Switch your phone provider to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month.
For those of you paying close to $40 a month for just one phone line, this means a savings of $300 over the course of the year. We especially like Mint because all plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/frugal. That's mintmobile.com/frugal. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/frugal. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Okay, so we're going to switch over into this next article that talks about how to actually negotiate. So let's say you are about to sign a lease or you're currently in a lease. Both situations, you can absolutely negotiate your rent. So this article comes from I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and it is entitled How to Negotiate Rent, 5 Rules to Save Thousands and Scripts to Use. It is a really great article. I would encourage you all to check it out because there's more to it than what we are just going to cover. But we want to talk through the different negotiating rent rules that are outlined here. So the first one is know what you want. And this is negotiation 101, rent or otherwise. Anytime you are heading to the negotiation table or phone call or meeting on the side of the road. You want to know what it is that you're asking for. You need to have a number in your head already. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of the other person, in this case, the landlord. So your landlord is coming at this situation with the mindset of they want to maximize their profits. So that's going to be their angle. And so if you can come with an actual number rather than just, oh, okay, sure, I'll knock $10 off of it. And so part of coming up with your own number is going to be affordability for you, looking at what is 25 to 30% of your household income that you can be spending on this place, but also to look up comparables in the neighborhood. You can use Zillow or Craigslist or other apartment finding sites to search your particular neighborhood within the city that you're living and determine what are other people paying for similar homes to yours. You know, if you're in a 3-2, what does that look like in your area? You're in a 2-1, a 1-1, whatever it is, and make sure that it's truly comparable. It's in a very similar neighborhood with very similar amenities. Otherwise, the landlord may not take you that seriously if you're trying to throw something at them that is not anywhere near close to the thing that you're renting. And come with that number in mind. What this article also encourages us to do, which I love, is consider other things you can negotiate for as well. So not just your monthly amount, but could you negotiate for free parking or additional storage or partially paid utilities, guest parking passes, security deposit back, waived pet fees? So there's a lot of different things that could be in your repertoire to be negotiating beyond just the monthly rent. So keep those things in mind as well, but come to the table with what you want.
Yeah. So when our tenants were negotiating this time around, they'd been with us for a year and they wanted to lower their rent. And it was a really good time for them to do that because I had literally just had a child and was pretty incapacitated, did not want to be doing
quite
showings.
Vulnerable.
Quite vulnerable. I really respected that they knew what they wanted, and I came back with a counter offer, and then they came back with a counter offer, and then I came back with a final offer, and we agreed, and I lowered their rent because it was a good time for me. I didn't want to be doing showings. I told them next year's a different story. I'm bumping it back up to what it was the first year. But it was just a really good situation for them. And they knew what they wanted. They threw out the first number and we were able to negotiate from there.
And that was also possible in part because you are a private landlord.
Correct.
So back to that other article, there is more leeway to be able to do something like that when, they're just renting from a family.
Yeah. And they started mowing their own lawn. So that was another reason we were a little bit more lenient because Travis didn't want to go over there. It's very hard to find lawn maintenance in this city because nobody wants to mow their lawn.
Except for me.
Except for Jill. Jill mows her lawn. I mean, we mow our lawns. So, but yeah, that was another reason why we felt good about lowering it. So the second rule is to offer something in return. So this is kind of that if you are handy and you can offer maintenance, cool. If you have an eye for design and this place needs some sprucing up, possibly that. Not all landlords are into that because they don't always see that their yellow beige walls need a coat of white paint, but whatever. And so the article says sometimes you can't just say, I want $200 off per month on my rent. You have to be ready to offer something in return. So he suggests prepaying for some months in advance, sign an extended lease, like we just talked about, offer to extend the termination notice from 30 to 60 or 90 days, offer to give up your parking space. Again, something we mentioned. Promise not to smoke in the apartment.
I promise. Please don't raise my rent.
We don't allow that anyways. But here's one thing. So not that we don't allow it, but our tenants removed the carpet from our bedrooms so that they could do do their thing with their,
I don't know. You need to specify.
They just
It's starting to sound weird.
Okay.
What do you mean do their thing? Why didn't they want the carpet?
So that the things they do in their bedroom, the scents would not permeate into the carpet.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
The
yeah. Scents. Like,
Oh, you are going that direction.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
like
so
adult
it
slip
was
and slide.
No. Oh my gosh. What?
I don't know. What are you...
Smoking.
Ow!
Oh my gosh, Jill. What?
I was not tracking.
No, you weren't. Wow. But not cigarettes. So they went above and beyond. But we didn't pay them for that. They did that all on their own. So, and they redid the floors underneath. So that was above and beyond. That I think is a unique situation. But yes, so that is, if that's you, then that is an option. But yeah, so they can also promise not to keep cats, even if they're allowed, and make a deal for referrals if they have low occupancy. It's always, if you have a good tenant that refers somebody, you assume they're going to be a good tenant. You still want to do your due diligence, background checks, calls, and all of that, but you could give them a referral bonus. So.
Yes. The goal here being to offer your landlord something that you don't care about in exchange for something you do. So saving money in exchange for maybe a little bit of time spent monthly to do XYZ, or to negotiate something in the contract. And it doesn't even require time, elbow grease, or anything from you. It's just maybe the parameters of your lease are a little bit more stringent towards you, but you don't mind.
Yeah. The point I was trying to make with the carpet is that carpet is something I didn't care about, but getting their security deposit back is something they do care about. So they did this thing for that.
Yeah.
So
great. And now they can do their thing in the master bedroom. Number 3. Know the market and when to negotiate. So timing does matter when you're negotiating your rent. They are recommending that if you are currently in a lease, begin negotiating that lease 2 to 3 months prior to it expiring. I think that this does a couple of things. It lets your landlord know you're on top of it, which is definitely a good thing as a tenant to be, and aware of what's coming. If it doesn't go the way that you want and you're truly deciding, then I cannot stay here, it gives you enough time to find another place. But it also gives enough time for some of those negotiations, and neither one of you then gets stuck in this position of, I waited too long to begin these conversations. This article also does reference just the time of year that, again, it is best to be negotiating in the winter months when it would be more difficult for your landlord to turn the place over. They may have some difficulty finding another tenant, which is going to cost them money in the long run. So they might be more amenable to some negotiations depending on the time of year.
Yeah, we have a 60-day notice. So at 90 days is when I expect negotiations to come in. Because if you're waiting to the last minute and you need to let me know 60 days in advance whether you're staying or going, you've lost your power. Like at 60 days, if I don't know you're staying, I'm looking for someone else. So definitely it's in bold in the article, 2 to 3 months before your lease expires. That's when you need to be negotiating. And I would push more towards 3.
There is a helpful infographic too within this article listing out some of the major cities and the best months and the worst months with some average monthly rent prices. And you can see for most of them, from the winter months to the summer months, it increases between $50 to $150 just from beginning rent in December to what it might be in July for a lot of these major cities, which is interesting. So yeah, you could reference that infographic too for your area to see, all right, what month should I be looking and negotiating?
Yeah, definitely. If you're, in the winter, then you should be able to get $50 off like what you could get in like a June, July. So is pretty much what this is showing. So that's cool. Number 4. Have the right script. So this is super important because this is, I think, the barrier to entry most people have to negotiating. That you can do all the research and have all these other things, but if you don't know the right words, it can be intimidating. And so we won't go through the exact scripts, but Ramit has scripts on this blog post. And he's lived in New York City and currently lives in LA. And currently has rented his entire adult life in both of these cities. And so these are scripts that have worked for him. So they're really good. And as a landlord, I really agree with how it's first and foremost being polite. So this thing is they're trying to lower the rent by $200. And then the landlord responds, of course, the landlord will always, their first response will be no. And so that's when you start negotiating. They're not going to right off the bat say, okay, I'll give you, 200 or 100. But I can tell you with my experience, the girls pulled the Zillow rentals and took a screenshot and showed me what comparable rentals were going for, what they thought were comparable rentals. It was outside of our area. So the place they were living was not actually in the screenshot. It was just a little bit off. And then not all of the 3.2s were as the same quality. And some of them were even 3.1s. So you want to make sure when you're sending comparables that it is really match for match, what you think is a match for match on the square footage and number of bedrooms and bathrooms. And then the closest, in your neighborhood, if the house is on the edge of the neighborhood and there's a lower priced neighborhood below, you don't have to necessarily include that, but just make sure you're including the right neighborhood and not a cheaper neighborhood because they'll know what you're doing. They've done this before and sometimes they do this for a living. So you're not fooling them. So make sure your research is reasonable and say, I have looked at some of the comps and I can find cheaper rent in the area for what I'm getting, but I really don't want to move. So this is what I found, yada, yada. So, But definitely look at the scripts on this article that will be in our show notes.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those situations where your first no, you don't have to accept and just think, oh, well, glad I tried.
Right.
The worst that can happen is they say no. Right. The worst that can happen is they say no after you've had some dialogue about this. Don't accept that first no. And I think those scripts help with that. And which leads into number 5, last on the list, practice in low stakes environments. You will not be able to win this at your first try if you've never negotiated anything before. I like the example that they give of don't shoot your first basket in the NBA. I don't think they'd let you in the NBA if you've never shot a basket, but you get the gist that you want to be practicing some negotiation before you jump into this type of negotiation where you're really looking to save close to $1,000, if not more, dollars per year. So practicing can look as simple as grabbing a friend or a coworker and moving through some of these scripts together just to get a feel for what does it sound like for this to come out of my mouth? Where do I get tripped up when I'm talking about my rent? What further research do I need to be doing? What decisions do I have to make before I enter this conversation? But it's also good to practice on other things and not just with friends and coworkers, but at your local farmer's market, negotiating for a small ticket item, through your Facebook marketplace or Craigslist transactions. These are really great places to be negotiating the price of something because especially there, I'll just go with Facebook Marketplace. No one ever lists something on Facebook Marketplace for actually what they think they're going to get.
That's a
They
fact.
are raising it by $50 to $150. I mean, depending on what the thing is, maybe by $5 or $10, imagining that people are going to talk them down. So do it. Talk them down.
Yep.
And I know it can feel uncomfortable, but I love what Ramit says in here that is it awkward to save thousands of dollars a year? And ultimately, no, that's a beautiful thing. So put this into practice, get your feet wet, know how it feels to do this. Yeah, put yourself in an awkward, uncomfortable position, and then save yourself tons of money throughout the course of your lifetime.
Yes. So a few things just to wrap this up about how to politely negotiate rent is you can start off asking the landlord if the rent price is open to discussion. Again, if they say no, don't take the first no. Just come back with your research, your offers, all the stuff you've been preparing. You can obviously offer something of value in return, know what you want before approaching your landlord, just re-going through these things that we've talked about. Know when to negotiate, that 2 to 3 months before. Use a script to make the process easier. Practice in low stakes environments. Research the property's value, specifically the rent value. But Zillow will not tell you the right rent. You really need to compare comparable different properties that are comparable and for rent at the same time. Because you could find 6 rentals that are $200 cheaper, but they're not available to you right now. And the landlord knows that. You're not going to be able to go back in time and get those. So they're going to be looking at what's available to take you away from their property right now. And then negotiate directly, follow up in writing. And so a lot of this, we negotiated with our tenants via text message. Honestly, the whole thing was done via text. So have it in writing. That's a perfectly fine way to do it. Especially if you're afraid of talking face to face or on the phone. So texting is totally fine.
You know what else is totally fine? Sometimes is awkward, but worthwhile. The bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Hi, Jen and Jill. My name is Renee, and my husband and I have a small homestead here in upstate New York, and wanted to tell you about a recent bill. My husband and I both had our Mint Mobile accounts come due for renewal for the year, and I'd noticed an advertisement for consumer cellular that was a little cheaper. And so I called Mint Mobile and told them about it. And they immediately gave my husband and I both $90 off our cell phone plans for the year. That's a total savings of $180 for the year for the two of us. A frugal win. And I also wanted to comment that due to our frugal homestead lifestyles, we each only have to work 4 days a week at our jobs. And we do really well with that. You take care and love your show, and we'll continue to listen. Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow, Renee, that's so great. I wish we'd had you when we did our saving on the cell phone plan. But that's a tip that we get, giving them the competitors' ads and saying, this is what's available to me right now. This is what I could be leaving you for.
Well, it's still so fitting because it's negotiation. We can negotiate across the board. And that's one of those low stakes negotiations that you can do to help practice for the higher stakes of negotiating rent. And my goodness, the amount of bills of the week we get about negotiating, really cell phone bills, but a lot of different bills. Y'all are very successful with it. And $180 for the whole year. Yeah, that's not something to sneeze at. You can do a decent amount with that. That's a few times going out to eat if you value it. Or it's buying more seeds for your homestead garden. Ooh, wouldn't that be fun? Renee, this is awesome. Congratulations. And I'm so thrilled to hear the side bill about your lifestyle and what you've been able to afford as a result of the choices you've made. That's so exciting. Well done. And thanks for the listen. If you all who are listening have a bill that you want to submit, if it's about negotiating, we want to hear your success stories. If it's about homesteading, if it's about your life, you want to give us a little memoir of what it's like to be Bill, visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill.
We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing. And once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concern about finding a charging station when your battery gets low. You start freaking out. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future in vehicles and in manufacturing plants too. In the years ahead, the materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you, a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or a battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyondzero. Toyota, let's go places.
It's never too late. Never too late to earn a degree. Never too late for a comeback. Between your busy career and taking care of a family, it can feel like there's never a good time to go back to school. But your time is now. Time to start your comeback with Purdue Global. As Purdue's online university for working adults, Purdue Global is dedicated to supporting adults like you who know it's time to earn the recognition you deserve. You have the experience, you have the knowledge, it's time to get credit for the work you've done. You can balance work, family, and everything in between while earning your degree. It's time to move forward in your career, for your family and for yourself, with a degree you're proud of, a degree that employers will recognize and respect. You're worth this investment in yourself to earn a degree you deserve. It's never too late. Never too late to go back to school and come back stronger with an education you can trust. Now is the time for your comeback. Start yours today at purdueglobal.edu.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
So aggressive. So aggressive. All right. So personally, what has worked for you to save money on rent? Not the archaic, tips that Google gives. While most of them do actually work, you don't know until you hear somebody that's actually done it. So let's hear it, Jill. What has worked for you in real life to save money on rent?
Yeah. So at one point, probably our biggest win when it came to lowering our rent is looking for an apartment in the area we wanted to be in. So we were really wanting a specific location, but apartments were pretty expensive in that area. Eric found an apartment that was pretty trash. It was really hard for me to do that first walkthrough. However, it had some potential and the rent was very low. So we went to this landlord before even signing a lease, just in our looking process, and asked, would you be willing to let us do some work on this apartment and in exchange for you keeping the rent low? So the benefit to him was that once we leave, which eventually did happen, and we all knew eventually that's going to happen, he could raise the rent significantly. It did need a lot of work. It had a cockroach infestation and the walls, someone had smoked in there. Like it needed some TLC. And I don't know, he is as crazy as we are. I don't know why he chose to say yes to us, because we ended up removing walls and gutting the bathroom and totally redoing the kitchen. I don't totally recommend this to all people, but I think a takeaway here could be what might be maybe not your best version of an apartment, but in the area you want to be in, offer to do some work, but yet keep the rent. So he kept that rent for us for the entirety of the time that we stayed there, which was 2.5 years, because of all the manual labor we put in. Of course, he paid for all of the supplies and materials. Our labor was given. He ended up giving us our first 3 months there for free, kind of as a thank you for what we did to the apartment, and then kept that very low rent, which I've loved all the places we've lived, but that's one of my favorites. It was a really beautiful spot by the time we were done with it.
And then you started a renovations company.
Yeah, we did. And in other places too, I think similar to what the articles have mentioned, we have only ever rented from private landlords. And I can attest to the ability to negotiate, or year over year when the lease comes to an end, that they don't raise it on us, where we can get ahead of it and negotiate for at least keeping it the same and not increasing it by a few percentage points. We, of course, have done the lawn maintenance or the snow removal. We've also negotiated for some additional space. There was one particular apartment we were in where there was a garage on the property. And so in exchange for taking care of the lawn, could we have access to this garage, which gave us space to put our tools and launch the business that we were launching, which then became additional income for us. So I think there's a lot of different things to negotiate, oftentimes beyond just the monthly amount.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Jen?
So I always had roommates. That was like the main way that I saved money on rent. And I would probably still have a roommate if I was not married with 2 children, because I loved having like people in the house. So there was actually one point in grad school where I shared a room. So it was a 4-bedroom house, and we had 5 girls living in it. And I shared a room with one of my good friends. And that worked because we were good friends and we both valued saving money over privacy. But that is not everyone. So you can still be true to the time you need. Where you live is a safe space. So if you don't want other people there, then, and that's what you value, then you just find ways to save money on other things. But if that's not you, then this is a great way to save so much money on your rent.
Well, also recognizing, I think one of the reasons that rent is becoming so popular is because of the flexibility that it allows, because you don't have maybe as many costs incurred. You're not responsible for the maintenance, and there's flexibility. So I think it's also worth maybe compromising on certain things for a season in order to save for certain goals, knowing that this isn't for forever. Maybe I'm not in the exact location I want to be in, but I'm renting and I can leave whenever I want and whenever the lease will allow me, but you're not set in stone. Let's say you choose to have a roommate, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a roommate for the rest of your life. Is it more important in this stage to save a little bit on my living expenses so that I can be better set up for what I want next? Or is it more important that I just have my own space? I think some of that internal work is worthwhile, and remembering there's flexibility and it doesn't have to be for forever.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention one thing before we wrap up. I know we've talked about it when we talk about like credit card rewards, but there is a credit card that will allow you to pay rent on it if your landlord allows online bill pay. Then, or I think even with checks, they can send a check, but you can pay on this credit card called Bilt, B-I-L-T, and we're not paid by them. This isn't a sponsored episode, but you can build credit and get rewards using this credit card to pay your rent. And there's no like great sign up bonus like a travel rewards card, but if you're looking to build your credit score and just get some rewards on the side in hopes of, getting better loans in the future on cars or mortgage rates, then definitely check out builtrewards.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been a blast to be here with you. And one of the other things that's a blast and we love is reading your kind reviews. We really appreciate them and especially love this one from Andio 1997. Love this show, they say. This show is a must listen for any woman looking to take control of her finances. With practical tips and engaging guests, it's an invaluable resource for anyone seeking financial freedom. Jen and Jill make every episode approachable, enjoyable, and informative. Highly recommend. 5 stars. Wow.
Yay!
Straight to the point, Andio 1997. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is exactly the type of review that we love to see because it lets other people know what they're getting into. So thank you so much.
And you can review us too if you want. If you're like, oh, I want to say some nice things to them and help other people find the show, please do that wherever you're listening to this podcast. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Sirianni.
You think you'll ever rent again? You think you'll ever be in a situation where you're renting?
I don't know. I own 2 homes now, so not in the foreseeable future.
Sometimes
But-
I dream about it.
Renting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. I dream about not having renovations.
Mm-hmm.
I dream about the house just being done for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I dream about no maintenance.
Sometimes I dream about not being a landlord, not having to rent out my units. It's not for everyone.
I dream
I
about
will
not
not-
having taxes to worry about and insurance. And
I will not own anymore. Like, this is it. I'm tapped out. It's not for me.
And you knew that. You even said that before you purchased the second house you purchased. Like, this isn't for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Real estate investing is a fantastic way to diversify your income. It is not for everyone. It is not for me. I don't like it. And
So we really might be renting very
one
soon.
day, maybe. One day. Who knows? It's very expensive to rent in the city, though.
Here we are.
With the best all-inclusive vacation deals to Mexico and the Caribbean, booking your getaway with Cheap Caribbean Vacations means you have more freedom to do your deal. Whether you want to enjoy snorkeling, endless margaritas, and more, or simply soak up the sun and sand in a tropical paradise, Cheap Caribbean Vacations has your deal for that. Plan and book the exact getaway you want at exactly the right price for you by using our exclusive Budget Beach Finder, or find a featured all-inclusive package to Paradisus by Malia Hotels. And do your deal at cheapcaribbean.com.
Bring home Napoleon,
Destiny has brought me here.
the action epic from acclaimed director Ridley Scott.
What is your name?
Napoleon. You are the greatest leader in the history of the world.
Witness the rise
You are nothing without me.
of the legend. Starring Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby.
I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
Napoleon. Buy or rent on digital now. Rated R.